Hey, yo, what's goody, family? I decided to go ahead and get right into it this morning because we got a lot to cover with this trial, so we're gonna go on and start a little bit early. We might end around lunchtime, I'm not sure yet, but let's see. Until then, let's get into it. Appreciate you joining, family. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, tap in, share with a friend.
Well, isn't this a nice surprise?
So where we left off, we watched some of the day 2 and day 3. They was on the stand talking. Well, anyway, let's just get into today. Let's not even worry about it. Let's go, family.
Q is the one that shot her, but then Mr. Walker tells you that he's the one that shot her, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Referring counsel to that same deposition, page 59, lines 4 through 8. During that deposition, Mr. Wilson, you were asked question, and he was clear with you, he being Ronnie, was clear that he was the one that shot the girl? Answer, that's what he told me. Question, never told you that anyone else did it? Answer, no ma'am. Those are the answers that you gave me just a couple of weeks ago, correct?
Correct.
And then Mr. Terry asked to speak with you and showed you a copy of the prior statement that you gave, correct?
Correct.
And in that prior statement, you said that Mr. Walker told you Quincy or Q was the one that shot the girl, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so I suppose, again, that was information that just slipped your mind when I was asking you about it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This conversation that you're having with Mr. Walker, is this the first conversation or that second conversation?
I don't recall if it was the first or second conversation, but it was a conversation that we had.
Okay. The conversation where Mr. Walker is telling you the details, does that happen at his mom's house or does that happen at Ronisha's house?
His mom's house.
Okay. And you specifically recall that conversation happening the day before Ronnie Walker gets arrested, correct?
I don't know if it was specifically the day before, but it was during that time.
Well, haven't you previously testified that it was the day before?
Yeah, I said it was the day before or somewhere around that time.
You believe your testimony has been it was the day before or somewhere around that time?
Yes.
Okay. This conversation with the details, is that the same conversation where Mr. Walker was asking you about a bond for Q?
Yes.
Referring counsel to page 59 of that same deposition, lines 20 through 25. I'm sorry, hang on one second. You were asked, the conversation we had about Q, was that the day before he was arrested, he being Ronnie, near Ronisha's house? And you responded, yes, ma'am, because the same day that he was arrested is the same day that I turned myself into Manatee County.
Okay.
Those were the answers that you gave just a couple of weeks ago, correct?
Correct.
And you're referring to when you turn yourself into Manatee County sometime in May or April?
No, I turned myself in April, and then I turned myself in again July 7th.
I understand, but I'm saying, when you're saying this conversation that you're having with Ronnie Walker.
This conversation would have happened in July.
Oh, you believe it was July? Okay. Referring counsel to page 60, lines 4 through 7. During that same deposition, Mr. Wilson, you were asked, so you're saying Ronnie gets arrested in May, that same day? Answer, yeah, I think it was the same day that I turned myself in. Question. So this conversation that you had with Ronnie happened in May? Answer. It was whatever day he was arrested, this conversation happened the day before he was arrested. Those are the answers that you gave, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
What up, though, Factual Lie? I see you here. First one. Appreciate you joining. So they started this kind of in the middle, but so what it sounds like, this is one of Ronnie Walker's cellmates in prison. So that's what it's sounding like right now.
And it's during that conversation, the day before Ronnie gets arrested, that he's telling you he needs you to bond Q out of jail in Pinellas County, or arrange for a bond for Q in Pinellas County, correct?
Somewhere around that time, yes.
Okay. Would you be surprised to learn, Mr. Wilson, that Mr. Creed, Q, actually doesn't get arrested until July 27th, long after Ronnie Walker was in jail? Is that surprising to you?
Yes.
Okay. I thought it might be.
Okay, so was that Creed's cellmate then? I'm confused.
I think your testimony to Mr. Terry is that Mr. Walker said he's arguing with Miss Alexander and he turns around and shoots her. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, this is about Ronnie Walker, accused of killing 14-year-old Nylexia Anderson.
Now, you've previously stated that Mr. Walker told you that when he shot Miss Alexander, she's sitting in the front passenger
Alexander. Ooh, my bad. Nylexia Alexander.
seat, correct?
I don't remember if he told me she was in the front passenger or not. I can't remember.
Okay. Now, you testified here today that you've never met Mr. Creed, correct?
Correct.
You don't know who he is, correct?
No.
Okay. But you were able to give Mr. Terry and the Detective Wieland, an exact description of what Robert Quincy Creed looked like.
Correct.
Isn't that true? Yet you had never met him, right?
Nope.
Never saw any pictures of him.
No, ma'am.
Right? So you just miraculously knew what this man looked like.
No, I miraculously listened to what your client told me he looked like and gave that description was what he told me.
Okay. Oh, so this is some new information. Tell me more.
No, ma'am, it's not new. It's in my deposition.
Tell me more.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but that's what was told to me. I gave the description that was given to me in the deposition. If you give me the deposition, I can read it from that. I don't have it.
Oh, let me get that for you.
Thank you.
All right. Can I approach the witness counter? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Wilson, I'm giving you all 90 pages of your deposition. Please let me know what page it is that you see where you told me Mr. Walker told you what Mr. Robert Quincy Creed looked
No,
like.
you asked me how did I know the description? I told you he gave me the
Right.
description.
Let me know. Let me know in the deposition where you said that.
Shout out to Tat Tat Tat. What up, Tat Clouds? Appreciate you joining, family.
This is the deposition. I'm looking for the one from from August 2nd of 2022.
You're asking for your proffer.
Yes.
Let me grab that from you.
Thank you.
I don't want all the papers to get mixed up, so let me make sure they're all in here. So I want to make sure that your testimony is clear, because I think we got a little confused there, is that your testimony today is that Mr. Walker told you what Robert Quincy Creed Sr., the father, what he looks like.
Yes, ma'am. It's in my. If you let me see the profile, I'll show it to you.
All right, here's your proffer from August 2nd.
Went step by step through the.
Let me help you, Mr.
No, I
Wilson.
have it right
you
here,
got
ma'am.
it? You got the correct
Yes.
page? And for counsel, we're referring to page 11, starting at line 10. Now,
Right.
Mr. Wilson, what you said is that he was saying that when he say, I gave them Q's son information, a description of Q's son,
Right.
is what he said he gave the detective. And then you told the detective, not Mr. Walker, you told the detective, because Q's son got, that's after Q. He had dreads and was light-skinned and had dreads, is what he said. But the daddy Q is a slim dude with bald head. That's you talking to the detective.
No, that's me
correct?
giving the entire description on what was given to me by him. I never stopped talking. That's just how they have it narrated in here.
Okay, so the court reporter narrated it incorrectly.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Judge, I'm gonna object to improper impeachment, and I'm gonna ask that it just be read in its entirety. The question is.
Sustain the objection, we'll read the whole thing into the record.
I read the entire, you want me to reread it?
She did not
Judge?
read the
I
question.
didn't hear you read it.
Okay. Do you know Q? Answer. I don't know. I don't know him, but I heard when me and Ronnie was talking, that's how I heard about him, because he was saying that when he say, I gave them Q's son, and this is in quotations, I gave them Q's son information, a description of Q's son, end quotations, is what he said he gave the detective. No more quotations are shown, because Q got a son that's named after, and said that Q had dreads and was light-skinned and had dreads, is what he said. But the daddy Q is a slim dude with bald head. He ain't.
Approach for a minute.
Yo, TSC, what up? Back so soon? It was just here, wasn't you? Nah, I appreciate you joining, family. Let me see. I think they gonna do like a sidebar. So while they do a sidebar, I'll play a little clip to get y'all slightly caught up with what's going on for those who was new, who wasn't here last night, and don't know what's going on. I got you. You know what I'm talking about? Appreciate y'all being here. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, tap in, share with a friend. Yeah, they doing a sidebar, so let me, oh, that's too big. Hold on 1 second, family. Let's see, while I'm queuing this up, Let me cue this up.
Welcome to Flesh of the God.
Well, isn't this a nice surprise?
What the helly? This thing all twisted. How, Sway? Oh, okay, I see what's going on. That's completely, I'm tripping. All right.
Early morning of May 6th, showing Ronnie Walker's car as it drove through the area around Florabraska, where the body of 14-year-old Alexia Alexander was found in a vacant field. They said she was shot 3 times in the head.
It was very hard hearing the details of what took place, how it took place, how many times my baby was shot, was stories for me.
Surveillance video from a nearby complex showed her getting into Walker's Ford Fusion at 2:52 and that she was dead by 3:07. They said it appeared Walker and an associate, Robert Quincy Creed, picked her up with the express purpose of killing her. Prosecutors have not gone public with a suspected motive.
I wake up, I go to sleep, and that's the biggest question I ask myself, why? What did my 14-year-old daughter do so bad to be gunned down?
Prosecutors admitted their case is partly based on circumstantial evidence, which the defense attorney seized on. She said the evidence presented did not show whether it was Walker or Creed who pulled the trigger, that the DNA evidence is faulty, and that Walker's past conviction of manslaughter was based on a guilty plea following a conviction that was vacated because of how he was first identified to detectives.
They keep saying Mr. Walker committed premeditated murder. He killed her. We have not one shred of evidence that he pulled the trigger or was even a principal to this.
Prosecutors said evidence showed blood was on the side Walker was likely driving on. They also said Walker was deceitful in his interviews with them. The judge agreed he was likely one of 2 people in the car when Alexia was killed. He's being held without bond until trial.
I'm overjoyed. There's no words can even express how I feel, but I'm so happy bond was denied.
Now, whether Ronnie Walker gets out will be up to a jury. Evan Axelbank, Fox 13 News.
Hey, yo, shout out to Laugh Now, Cry Later. Y'all drop her some coins in the chat. Appreciate the support, family. Dropping the Cash App, the 10 on it. I appreciate you. Y'all show her some love. Let me drop a bomb for you. Coming in swinging. I appreciate the support. Let's get back into it.
All right, Mr. Wilson, referring counsel to page 81 of the June deposition, lines 21 through 24. You were asked, Mr. Wilson, okay, but how do we get a description of what Q looks like in your proffer given on August 2nd if you've never met him and you didn't know him? Answer, I don't know. Question, like,
oh, hold on, let me get the message. She said, can't watch now, but here to show my support. Appreciate you. Appreciate the support, family. Much love, much love.
25, you don't know? And then I asked you about a news article. Do you remember that line of questioning?
Yes.
So I asked you specifically, how did you know what Q looked like? And you had every opportunity to tell me, your client told me what he looked like. But you didn't say that, right?
Correct.
You said, I don't know.
Correct.
Okay. Showing you a news article from July 15th, 2022. Can you have a look at that? And take a good look at it, look at the contents of it, have a read,
Okay.
and then let me know when you're ready to continue.
Jazzy T in the building, what up? Tall Glass in the building, what up? I see y'all, appreciate you, family. Factual Lie, tat, tat, tat. Tia C, what up? Again.
Okay, I mean, okay.
Okay, hold on one second.
Brown Sugar Babe, hey friend, how you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for joining.
Mr. Wilson, you've read that news article before, correct?
No, I haven't. I'm reading it now.
No? Okay. Oh, well, yeah, please finish reading it. Read all the information there.
Bruh.
Okay.
Your testimony shows you've never read that news article before?
I've never read this, no.
Is it a coincidence that every detail you just gave me comes from that news article then?
Objection, Your Honor, that's incorrect. May we approach?
Approach.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Trying to get time off and these boys reading news articles and going to act like snitches. And some shit they got out the news. Crazy. Let me skip past. I know this one was a long break, but let me skip past that one. Let's see. Here we go. Time travelers. We could just hop through the portal. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. No issues with the court's instructions, no discussions about the case or any interference. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe you're counselor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wilson, when we last left off, we were discussing the news article that was published July 15th, 2022.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you previously told this jury that Mr. Walker told you he shot Nylexia Alexander in the cheek, correct?
Yes.
This news article specifically mentioned she'd been shot 3 times in her head and once in her back, 1 wound to her cheek, correct?
Yes, I see it.
You told this court about the kind of car that Mr. Walker drove, a black Fusion.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Judge. I was trying not to do it.
Watch
A
out
black
there now.
Fusion, correct?
Yes.
This article specifically mentions a dark black Fusion, correct?
It just says a dark Ford Fusion. It doesn't say black.
Okay, all right, a dark Ford Fusion. I'll give you that, right? You told this jury that Mr. Walker tells you that he goes to a Thornton's gas station immediately after, correct?
Yes.
This news article specifically mentions a dark Ford Fusion pulled into a Thornton's gas station at Hillsborough and Armenia Avenue, correct?
Yes.
You and I had this little back and forth about the description of Q, as in Mr. Robert Quincy Creed, the father, and Q, the son. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. This article specifically mentions that Mr. Walker tried to blame it on Q, but gave the description of 6'1" with a slim build and dreadlocks. And that
Okay.
didn't seem like Robert Quincy Creed, correct?
Yes.
And that was the exact description that you and I were going back and forth on, that you gave law enforcement and that you gave Mr. Terry, correct?
That's correct.
6'1", slim build with dreadlocks, right? Is that what you said in your proffer?
I don't think I gave a height, but
Hold on.
One second.
Shout out to Lord Tat Clouds. Appreciate the support, family. Drop some coins in the chat for Lord Tat while they sidebarring. I will fast forward it after I drop her 2 bombs. Two bonds for you. Appreciate you joining, family. Appreciate the support. Y'all show us some love. Drop some coins in the chat. Let's get right back into it. Appreciate the love, family. Almost right back into it. It's a long little break right here, huh? I could have played some of the other testimony. Oh, here you go. Oh, hold up. I forgot to drop that sweetie for Lord Tat. Her message for that donation was Sweetie!
You soft.
Why they volume so low? Hold on. They is talking.
Yes.
All right, and it was shortly after this would have been published to the state, correct?
Yes.
And in talking with the state attorney's office. Then is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, we talked a little bit about your bond situation. You were about.
That ain't me, family. Let me see if they can get their
Yes.
volume up. They got the volume on super duper low.
Correct?
Yes.
2020 under 10. But that deal
Yes.
told you. Okay, sit here. Here today, correct? Go to ago, correct?
Said us.
Passenger next to you.
Here, let me see if we can hear this, cause let me see if y'all can hear it, cause I can't hear it on my side. Let me go back to where they talking.
6 foot jury here in court.
Can y'all hear that or no? I turned it all the way up.
Someone's cell phone being left in the car, correct?
Yes.
This article specifically mentions
Here, let me
Walker's
see if we can
girlfriend's
hear this,
cell
'cause
phone
let me
left
see if
in
y'all
the
can hear
car took a similar path as Alexia's phone, correct?
Correct.
All of those details that you and I just talked about, those are all in this news article, correct?
Yes.
All right, and it was shortly after this would have been published, so this is July 15th, shortly after that, that you have your attorney reach out to the state attorney's office, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, you yourself reached out to the state attorney's office by calling them to tell them you wanted to talk to them, correct?
Yes.
So you were pretty interested in talking with the state attorney's office then, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, we talked a little bit about your bond situation. You were about to have your bond revoked, correct?
Yes.
After you give your statement, that never happens, correct?
Yes.
You had
Okay, sound like it might be working for y'all. Let me turn it up a little more.
many cases that you were facing here in Hillsborough County that ultimately you pled guilty to. Was it in November of 2022 or 2023?
2023.
2023.
Yes.
Cut my volume down.
And on your sentencing score sheet, you were scoring just under 10 years in prison is what your appropriate score should have been, correct?
Correct.
And you pled guilty and you got a deal of 5 years in prison, correct?
Yes.
But that deal was conditioned on you being here to testify, right?
Yes.
Because if you did not testify against Mr. Walker, the state attorney's office told you they would revoke their deal and you then would be facing 10 years in prison.
Yes.
Okay. And not just facing, but that would be your sentence. Right?
Yes.
And that's your understanding as you sit here today.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to go back to something that you said here today, which is that Mr. Walker told you he turns around and he shoots Miss Alexander, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm listening on that phone. I can hear better on my phone than on the TV. Let me see. Maybe if I cut this one up.
That conversation is
I'm trying to
happening
keep
during
up.
the first time that you speak with Mr. Walker at his mom's house, or the second time at Ronisha's house?
I don't remember.
I'm going to refer counsel to page 58, lines 1 through 2. During that deposition that you gave just a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Wilson, you said, he said he was arguing with her and they were in the car. She was in the front seat of the car next to him and they was arguing, correct?
I don't recall, but if you say
Would
that,
like to
yes.
see the
No,
transcript?
yes.
Yes?
No, I said, I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
That's the statement you gave me
Yes.
just a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Is that Miss Alexander, Mr. Walker tells you, Miss Alexander is seated in the front seat passenger next to him.
Yes.
And again, this conversation is all happening the day before Mr. Walker gets arrested.
If my recollection is correct, yes.
Well, you've previously stated, and we went through those statements multiple times, you stated multiple times during your deposition, emphatically, that this all happens the day before Mr. Walker gets arrested.
Yes.
And that's the same day that you turn yourself into Manatee County Jail.
Yes.
Would you be surprised to learn the only record of you turning yourself into Manatee County Jail is from April of 2022?
I would be very surprised because I called Manatee County a few days ago to make sure that I had the dates right, and I spoke the records and they told me exactly what day it was.
Okay. And did you call Manatee County to make sure you had these dates correct because Mr. Terry told you about the documents I provided to him?
No, Mr. Terry never told me about any documents you provided to him.
No? Okay.
No.
During that proffer that you give in August, that you give Detective Whelan some information about a gun being thrown off a bridge?
Yes.
And you told Detective Whelan Mr. Walker cleaned his car, or told you he cleaned his car out at Thornton's gas station?
Yes.
And I believe what you told Mr. Terry is that Mr. Walker tells you that he had his mother's house cleaned.
Yes.
Okay. In this conversation that you had with Mr. Walker, did he tell you how Alexia Alexander gets, I think I already asked you about that. You said that he tells you he shot her in the cheek, correct?
Yes.
And this whole conversation with Mr. Walker starts with him asking for your help with a bond for him and for Q, who had been arrested in Pinellas County, correct?
For him and the girlfriend in the beginning, and then Q was balled up about it, yes.
I'm sorry. when was Q brought up? He was brought up in the same conversation.
Yes.
Okay. And he's telling you, Q is in Pinellas County. I need you to help him bond out of jail in Pinellas County.
Yes.
Okay. Have a moment,
See, my bad, I'm a little late. I'm trying to fill in these gaps with some talk so we don't have no dry airspace, but I got to listen on my phone, so I'm a little behind because my computer, I got the volume all the way up. I cannot hear it. I had to turn it up. I had to amplify the sound to make it sound like this. I'm pretty sure everybody else is super low.
Okay. Nothing else. Thank you.
Where you at?
All right. All right. So, Mr. Wilson, let's go back in time. You gave this proffer back in August 2nd of 2022. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so back when you gave this
So it seems like she must have forgot to turn the mic on.
proffer, was all of this information and everything that had occurred and everything that was told to you fresh in your mind at that time?
Yes.
Was it much fresher in your mind than it was when you did your deposition just 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Objection to leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
Was it fresher? Prior to giving this deposition a couple weeks ago, where had you been housed?
Hillsborough County for 6 months and Pasco County for 18 months.
Okay. And when you were coming to give this deposition, you were in Pasco County and they brought you here, is that right?
Yes.
All right. Was there some confusion? Did you actually get transported a couple times?
Yes. I arrived here in Hillsborough County May 28th, and they transported me to Hernando County June 2nd and brought me back to Hillsborough County June 2nd.
Okay. Now, prior to giving this deposition, did you ever have a chance to meet with me, meet with your attorney, or ever see your proffer?
No, sir.
So when you gave this deposition, you hadn't had a chance to refresh your memory from the proffer?
No, sir.
All right. Has a lot been happening in your life in the last 3 years?
Yes, sir.
All right. Have you been thinking about this case those 3 years?
No, sir.
Have you been thinking about what Ronnie Walker told you those 3 years?
No, sir.
And after this deposition, were you actually given your proffer from August?
Yes, sir.
And you had a chance to review it at that point?
Yes, sir.
Objection leading.
Was what you said in the proffer accurate to your memory back then?
Yes, sir.
On this section that Ms. Dunker was referring to on page 11 of the proffer,
Yes, sir.
when you give this statement, and I'm going to read it verbatim, it says, I don't know, the question was, do you know Q? And you said, I don't know him, but I heard when me and Ronnie was talking, that's how I heard about him. Because he was saying that when I gave them Q's son information, a description of Q's son is what he said he gave the detective, because Q got a son that's named after and said that Q had dreads and was light skinned and had dreads is what he said. But the daddy Q is a slim dude with bald head. They ain't the same person. Is all of that information that Ronnie Walker gave you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you know what his daddy Q actually looked like?
Never saw him. No, sir.
Now, this article that Ms. Dunker was referring to, you said you never read this article?
No, sir.
Was today the very first time you've read this article?
Yes, sir.
And do you typically read the Tampa Bay Times?
No, sir.
And you said you get your information from where?
Florida Sentinel Bulletin.
Okay, so Florida Sentinel Bulletin is where you had read about this case or heard about this case?
Yes.
All right. Now, the article that Ms. Dunker was referring to talks about and gives the description of a 6'1", slim build and dreadlocks, correct?
Yes, sir.
You described him as dreads, light skin, and had dreads. You never mentioned that he's 6'1", do you?
No, sir.
You never mentioned that he has a slim build, do you?
Objection leading.
No, sir.
So your description, the description in the article says 6'1" with a slim build and dreadlocks. You go, had dreads and was light skinned and had dreads.
Yes, sir.
All right. Also, this article never gives a description of the daddy Q, does it?
No, sir.
You read the article, right?
Yes, sir.
It never gives a description of him, does it?
No, sir.
Does it ever say in that article that Daddy Q is a slim dude with a bald head?
No, sir.
Is bald head ever even mentioned in this article?
No, sir.
The article gives a lot more information that you never gave. Wouldn't that be accurate?
Yes, sir.
For instance, the article talks about cell phone records indicating the man's phone twice communicated with Nylexia's phone in the days before she was killed. You don't mention anything about any connection like that, do you?
No, sir.
I'll sustain the objection.
Do you mention anything like that?
No,
in the
sir.
proffer? You had mentioned that she was shot in the cheek. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever mention that she'd been shot 3 times in her head
No, sir.
and once in her back?
No, sir.
That's in the article, though, right?
Yes, sir.
What up, though, Tay Biz TV? Appreciate you joining.
Did you ever mention to the police that the girl was a runaway?
No, sir.
Is that in the article?
Yes, sir.
Do you ever mention anything about DNA?
No, sir.
Was that in the article?
Yes, sir.
Does the article ever mention Erica Sweet?
No, sir.
Does the article ever mention anything about a relationship between Ronnie Walker and Alexia?
Yes, sir.
Does it ever mention a relationship between the two of them?
No, sir.
Does it ever mention anything about STD or any motive for the murder?
No, sir.
Does it ever mention tossing the gun into the river?
No, sir.
Does the article ever mention anything about cleaning the car or cleaning the house?
No, sir.
Was all of that information that was given to you by Ronnie Walker?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Judge.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, he may.
Yes,
Oh, so they gonna switch to a new witness, huh?
Please, you may call your next witness.
They move right along over here. At least they ain't taking all that time like Love and them was doing. They go hillbilly judge. Biker gang judge. He got his biker jacket under the under the judge gown. Let's see who will be the next witness, family. Let me see. I could play a little clip real quick while we waiting. Oh, actually, we got skip time. I'm tripping. Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Terry, whenever you're ready.
Yes, Judge. Judge, we can approach real quickly before we get started on this witness. Name and spell your last name for the court reporter.
Sure. It's Gregory. Gregory's first name. Last name is Van Heist. That's VAN space capital HEYST.
All right, and Sergeant, where are you currently working?
I'm currently employed as a detective sergeant with the City of Tampa Police Department.
How long have you been working with the City of Tampa Police Department?
I've been there about 25 and a half years.
What is your current position or title at I know you said you're sergeant detective, but do you work in a particular area or a particular group?
I do. So my current assignment right now is the detective sergeant and supervisor of our Internet Crimes Against Children and Cybercrime Squad. Mostly investigating in Internet crimes against children. We deal with digital forensics, things like that.
Prior to your current position, what other positions have you held with the Tampa Police Department?
Sure. So prior to this role, I was the detective sergeant of the homicide unit for about 5.5 years, from maybe 2015 until 2020, or into halfway into 2020, 2021. Prior to that, I was a detective sergeant of a district, so supervising a detective unit. Prior to that, I was a detective in a district, investigating general crimes. And then I had some various roles in undercover drug, gang unit, and patrol.
In your career with the Tampa Police Department, have you ever had opportunities to work on cases regarding cell phone technology, specifically with cellular records, mobile forensics, and cybercrime?
I have multiple.
Okay. And have you had any specific training in those areas?
I have probably starting maybe 15 years ago or so, I started kind of taking formal advanced training, both from private and public vendors, so private companies, then also some government institutions like the FBI. I've probably had well over 500 hours of training related to either cell phone technology, cyber crimes, digital forensics, topics like that.
Are you certified in any areas?
So I'm a certified wireless analyst, which has to do with just the technology of wireless communication.
Okay. What about on-the-job experience? About how many cases have you had involving cellular technology in your career? Approximate.
I would say approximately. I've probably dealt with 300 or 400, and that's probably a low estimate.
Okay. And have you ever had occasion to map out based on cell site records and to form a travel of a cell phone?
I have multiple times.
Approximately how many times would you say?
Oh, hundreds.
Okay. Explain to the jury how that's done in a typical manner.
So when I first started, so we get records from companies such as T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T. Those are the three providers right now. What they do is they're keeping records for their customers. It started way back as they kept records so they could charge you based on your usage, or like long distance calls, or where in the world you were calling from. So they keep those records or logs of records. They would then give them to law enforcement via legal process, so via their subpoena or search warrant. We could look at those records, we could see each row of activity. It's in a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet, and it'll give a timestamp of when it occurred, the phone number involved, the device information sometimes that was involved, and then depending on the legal process, so if it's the search warrant, you'll also get some geographic information for that activity. So that could be the cell site that phone was connected to for that activity, whether it was a voice call or maybe it was a data transmission. And then also it would give you a side of that cell site, so which direction it was connecting to. And then those records have kind of have advanced since then to things such as timing advance, so they give a little more specialized location, but that's generally how that works.
All right. And have you ever testified as an expert in this area?
I have.
About approximately how many times?
I believe 3 times in this district.
And you all in this jurisdiction? In this
Yes,
district?
sir.
All right. I don't know if the defense would like to ask any questions.
Maintain our objection, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Now, before we get into the specific findings in this case, did you prepare a presentation to explain this technology with the jury?
I did, yes.
And do you believe this presentation will help them in understanding the specific findings in this particular case?
I do.
All right, Judge, at this time, I'm going to introduce Court Exhibit 1.
Maintaining our objection.
Noted, same rule.
All right, so this is, I guess, just a sort of an introductory slide, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, now, this is slide 2. What are we looking at, and if you can explain to the jury what this is saying?
Yeah, so this is just to give an idea of generally how cell sites are set up. So you're probably familiar, you've all seen them, big towers that can be at an intersection or anywhere really, and they have those antennas. Most cell sites are 3-sided. Not all, but generally speaking, they're gonna have 3 sides. Generally speaking.
Good morning, TSC. Appreciate you.
Also, each of those 3 sides are going to cover about 120 degrees. So if you separate a cell site, each of those sectors or sides of a cell site will serve about 120 degrees of range.
All right. So what are we looking at in slide 3 here?
So here's some examples of, again, the slide before, but here's some examples of cell sites that are in the city of Tampa. On the left side of the slide is more of a traditional cell site that has those antennas on the top, 3 sides. There's also some non-traditional cell sites that are becoming more common. They can be on top of a telephone pole. They could be attached to a building. And now...
Yo, Tay Biz, I'm glad you asked, because I was just about to play something, because this dude getting a little slow. And just to get y'all caught up, let me play this little clip of what's going on. Appreciate that, and appreciate y'all being here.
Ashley Alexander hasn't yet seen in person the man prosecutors say shot her daughter, Nalexia, in the dead of night. But that day is rapidly approaching.
He took a decision to pull a trigger and took my baby from me. And that changed the world for my family and I.
Prosecutors and defense attorneys have spent nearly a week picking a jury. Back in 2022, when police were still trying to ID Nalexia through a tattoo, police said she was found in a field off of Florabraska Avenue and that she was seen on video getting into Ronnie Walker's car at 3 a.m. on May 6th. But for now, only lawyers know what for.
I do want to know the motive. I want to know what she could have done, what she could have said.
Ashley adopted Nalexia when she was 4, after years shuffling through foster homes. Nalexia became obsessed with finding her birth parents. But when an opportunity to meet them went south, her mother says Nalexia ran away time and again. How she met Walker in the first place is still unknown to her mother.
I'm leaning on justice. I pray the jurors listen out to the evidence that the prosecutors have. And I pray they understand this was a child that was taken by a grown man.
Walker was given a life sentence for manslaughter in 2010, but was let out after an appeal in 2016. This time, an accused accomplice might also testify. Robert Creed is charged with accessory to murder after the fact and may have been in the car that night. For now, Walker is waiting. Ashley is waiting for 2 things: for justice and for something that will never come.
But you still find yourself calling her name, looking forward to see her come out the room, looking forward to see her in the kitchen cooking. The house went silent when he killed her. Everything in the house stopped. There was no more life in our home.
Yeah, Nalexia Alexander. And so the person that's on trial is Ronnie Walker right now. They saying he did it. And yeah, I don't know. Either him or Robert Creed, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. Either way, neither one of them should have been with that baby. They both grown men, 40-something years old, 48 years old. She was like 14, so appreciate that, family. We get back into it.
We're starting to see them pop up, especially here in downtown Tampa, sites that are almost look like a telephone pole, but they're about the height of a
Oh, yeah, and hold on. I missed that. Shout out to TSC. That's why I was going over there. Let me add your name up there. Shout out to TSC. Appreciate you for the donation, family.
Telephone pole, but that is the cell site now, and they're covering a smaller area.
Okay. All right, what are we seeing here in slide number 4?
So this is just to note that when we deal with cell site activity, the records we get from a company like T-Mobile, they'll give us the cell site that the phone is connected to. At times they'll give us the sector or the direction the antenna was connected to. When you look at a demonstrative, when we map these things out, we notate that where the cell phone was, the cell site was located, which is going to be where those 2 lines are connected. That's the cell site location. And then the shaded area is the directionality, so what side of that cell site. It in no way means that it was limited to where those lines are depicted on the graph or on the map, or the shaded area does not mean that's the area of coverage. It's just intended to give a location of the cell site and the directionality.
So the cell phone could be anywhere kind of within that, like that V section.
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, and slide number 4, what are we looking at here?
So this is a record that a timing advance record. So it's has to do with activity on a cell phone or registrations that phone is connecting back and forth to a cell site. Timing advance is the cell phone's company of basically determining how can I serve that cell phone properly? How can I make sure their calls go through, their texts go through, their Facebook posts, all their data transmissions, things like that? So they come with technology that basically it knows generally where that phone is, and it wants to know, so it's sending messages back and forth. Those logs or those messages, that registrations are getting captured in these logs. They're providing an estimated distance from the cell site along with an estimated location of the device. The cell phone companies say that these are estimations, that they're not exact pinpoints of we know exactly where that device was. But again, it gives estimations. Here you're seeing, and this will be later shown on the some further slides, that shaded area is the directionality. So that's the antenna that the cell phone was connected to, the cell site, the antenna, the directionality. And then that arc that's connected the two straight lines, that's what T-Mobile is saying. That's the estimated distance that handset or that cell phone was from that cell site.
All right. So it doesn't give an exact location ever for where these cell phones are, just kind of estimates. Is that right?
They're estimated locations, yes, sir. Okay.
Also, we covered the opening statements and a lot more of this. It was pretty crazy last night. If y'all ain't watched the episode from last night, y'all make sure y'all tap into that one. It was a good one, family. It explained all of what's going on here.
So now, at this point, we are getting into some more specifics with regards to this case. So what are we looking at in slide number 6?
So this is a copy of the subscriber information that T-Mobile provided for phone number 813-447-6234. It gives a name, an address, some dates of service. It also gives some phone information, some identifiers, things of that nature.
All right. And were you given this information by Detective Van Heist as far as the phone information?
Detective Wieland, yes.
I'm sorry, Detective Van Heist, it's you. Yeah, Detective Wieland, I apologize.
Yes.
So you were given this information, and so do you know the significance of this particular phone number?
It was conveyed to me, yes.
Okay, what were you told?
Objection to hearsay.
Well, all right, I'll rephrase that question. So you were told that this was a phone number related to this case, or that's how you put it in there?
Correct.
All right. So 6 gives an information of an individual by the name of Daniel Tolleru. Do you know who that is?
I do not.
Okay. Now going further to slide 7, what are we looking at there with regards to this same phone number that we were talking about in slide 6?
It's just kind of some information that you can glean from the subscriber records, just showing that phone number was being used by a Motorola. It gives the model number there. I apologize, I can't read it exactly, but a Motorola smartphone which was the device being used with that phone number for the records that we have.
And so this is information you all received from the records you order from T-Mobile?
Correct.
In slide 8, what are we looking at here?
So again, this is just subscriber information for a phone number of 305-910-9779, providing similar information as I stated below, a name, an address of the subscriber, some dates of service, and then information about the device itself.
All right, and on this subscriber number 305, who does it says the owner is?
The listed subscriber name is Erica Sweet.
And again, in slide 9, this is kind of similar to what we did in slide 7, where you kind of talk about the phone.
Yes, sir. It's just showing that number was being used in this case with a Samsung smartphone.
All right, what is slide 10?
So here's an example of the T-Mobile timing advanced data. So what I mentioned before, this is and I apologize for the slide. These rows actually go all the way across. I've cut it in half. But this is the type of data that you would get on a timing advanced record from T-Mobile pursuant to a search warrant.
Slide 11, what do we see here?
So this is plotted activity from those timing advanced records for the phone number ending in 6234. So you have some locations that were conveyed to me that are significant to the case by Detective Wieland that have been plotted out. And then the black lines, so where the two straight lines, black lines meet, that's going to be the location of a cell site where that activity occurred from. The shaded areas, as I mentioned before, that's signifying which antenna or the directionality that cell phone connected with. So basically pointing out from that shaded area. Now, the arced lines those are the estimated distances from those cell sites extending from those two straight lines. This is for activity between on May 6, 2022, between 2:50 a.m. and 2:55 a.m.
And that's for the phone number of 447-6234?
Yes, sir.
All right. And the phone that's for a period of 5 minutes, correct?
Yes.
So it does ping off, I guess, different towers. What happens there? How does that work?
Yeah, so the way timing advance records work, they're occurring very often and frequently. And often they'll connect with different cell sites that are serving the area a cell site is in. A lot of times that's how we can really narrow down an area where we think that cell phone was, or potentially if we're looking for a device where that cell phone is. And they can have distances, and a lot of times if those estimated distances overlap, or you have multiple distances, it gives a very good indication of where that cell phone was, or an estimated location.
Okay. And slide number 12.
So this is timing advance activity for the same period, so May 6, 2022, between 2:50 a.m. and 2:55 a.m. For the phone number ending in 9779. Again, some timing advance activity here. You can see some activity with two different cell sites, with one of them providing that estimated distance that's kind of crossing over some areas there in the middle of the screen.
All right. And slide 13.
So this is moving forward to activity on May 6, 2022, between 3:05 a.m. and 3:10 a.m. For the phone number ending in 6234. Here, there's a lot more activity, and in my training and conversations with other people who are versed in these topics, it seems that timing advance records seem to produce more activity when there's more movement on a device, and that's why you may see that here. So all of those arced lines, those are all estimated distances from the cell site. And then you'll also see those little black dots. Those are T-Mobile's estimated location for that device. Again, they say estimated, but again, this is just 5 minutes of activity for that device, showing a lot of distances kind of congregating where those black dots are.
And that's kind of in the same general area as the homicide location. Would that be accurate?
It is almost, I guess, directly over, and a lot of the overlapping arcs seem to be right, probably within blocks of that area.
Okay, and this is the 447-6234 phone, which if we refer back to on slide number 11 at 2:50, so about 10, 15 minutes earlier, was in a completely different location of the city. Would that be accurate?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay, and that's kind of, would that indicate sort of in the area where the victim was picked up at 2:52 hours?
Yes, sir.
All right, and does the data correspond with that location, that the cell phone is in that area?
Yes, it does.
And then with the phone number 305-910-9779, tell me about this slide number 14.
So this is also for the same date, May 6, 2022, for that time period between 03:05 a.m. to 3:10 a.m. for the phone number ending in 9779. It's showing very similar activity as the previous slide, the other number we're speaking about, with a lot of estimated distances that are at or near the area of the homicide location. It's unfortunately it's also red, but it's connected to that red line with homicide location. That's the plot of the homicide location that was provided to me. So you'll see a lot of the red dots of estimated locations for the cell phone itself, and then those arcs, which are estimated distances from the cell site, which are several are overlapping in that area.
So based on this data, would you say it's consistent with that cell phone 305-910-9779 being in the area around the homicide location?
Yes.
And slide number 15, what are we looking at on this particular slide?
So this is for activity for the phone number ending in 6234, now from 3:30 a.m. to 3:34 a.m. the map has also been magnified out, so you're getting a larger view of the city or the area. Because the phone is now showing activity up on the, I guess it's the left side of the screen, up near a plot called Thornton's, which is a gas station at Armenia and Hillsborough. So it's showing the device was connected to a cell site just a few blocks actually away from that gas station, and those estimated distances seem to be crossing over or nearby the gas station, along with some estimated locations of that device nearby also.
And Detective, was that part of what drew this investigation to that Thornton's, this evidence that came out of this?
Yes.
All right. And then finally, slide number 16, what do we see here?
So this is activity for the phone number ending in 9779 for the same time period, May 6, 2022, between 3:30 and 3:34 a.m., showing the timing advance activity or the records where that phone is also associated with a cell site located very near to the Thorntons there, with estimated distances crossing over or nearby the Thorntons, along with estimated device locations in that area.
So, Detective, based on your looking at these records, would it appear to you that the phones were in the same general location around the same time?
Yes.
And Judge, I'm now going to provide this to the clerk as state's court, or as court exhibit number 1.
Got the cell phone data locked in.
Now, when you download these sites into a map format, is there a way to show the sites, the phone moves, the movement of the phone?
There is. So there's a tool we can use. There's several tools. The one I use will let you input those Excel spreadsheets. So the data that we get from a company like T-Mobile, it'll plot these out on a map, show the directionality, but then also you can play the movement. Basically, you can create an animation showing the movement of the device associated with the cell sites, and you can speed it up too. So for example, a minute of activity on the records, we can show it in 5 seconds on the animation.
And did you create, for purpose of this case, 4 different animations showing the movement of these phones?
I did, yes.
All right. I'm going to show you, and I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 18A, B, C, and D.
Chan said good. Now we got the self data. That's a fact. Got the cell data
Are those
locked
the
in.
ones you created in this case?
Yes.
And do they fairly and accurately depict the movement of those cell phones according to the cell site data you received?
Yes.
Judge, at this point, we would move to have State's Exhibit 18A through D admitted into evidence.
Maintain our objections, Your Honor.
Same rule, it will be admitted as 18A through D.
What up, FFS?
All
I
right.
see you.
I'm going to start with 18A. This is indicated on the CD as 0250 to 0340 for 305-910-9719. Is this the one you created?
Yes.
All right. Has it been published now?
So for those of y'all just tapping in, this is the murder trial for 14-year-old Lenexia Alexander. I need to write this thing down somewhere because I do not have a good memory, and I hope I didn't mess her name up. What they looking at? Let me skip past.
On the map, what happens? Did we put that? Now there are times where there's nothing on the map. What happens there?
So there's just not activity occurring on the records.
Oh, let me stop it now. Okay, and occasionally we see what appears to be a cell site tower that's located in a completely different location from where it's pinging just a minute before. How is that possible?
So there could be different explanations. Cell phones operate on radio waves, so sometimes in dense urban areas, you're going to have, I believe, what's called reflections, or if a signal is bouncing off of multiple buildings, it could bounce and then give over to a cell site that's not near the area where the device is. There's times also too where a phone, T-Mobile uses what's called a distributed antenna system, or a DAS system. They have big base stations. There's one located, and I think that's actually some of the activity that we see on that map there, located area of 40th and Hillsborough. It's connected via fiber underground to smaller cell sites. I think we saw one earlier, like on the top of a telephone pole. At times, the timing advanced records have not been updated or show the connection with the smaller cell site and are still reverting back to that base station. There's a couple different explanations that could be why that occurred.
Okay, but overall, that map fairly and accurately depicts kind of the movement of the phone during the course of that time period that you've documented.
Yes.
I'm going to publish now State's Exhibit 18B. And this is related to the cell phone 813-447-6234, correct?
Yes.
Let me see if I could blow up so we can see a little better what they looking at. Guess not much, huh? I could skip fast or something. I'll come back and cover that later.
Do you also have the ability to overlay the two telephone numbers together in one continuous map?
Yes, you can combine the sets of records to show the movement at the same time.
And do you delineate them or separate them by different colored of their cell site maps?
Yes.
Okay. And so, for instance, so what we've seen so far is the 305-910-9779 appears to be in red, and the 813-447-6234 appears to be in black. Is that true?
That's correct.
All right. And did you do that in State's Exhibit 18C?
Yes.
I am now publishing State's Exhibit number 18C. And they are synced up time-wise. Would that be accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. area, just so Detective, I think it's pretty clear, but just so, based on your understanding and expertise as far as in this area, do those phones appear to be traveling in concert?
They do, yes.
Now, were you given information in this case that the cell phone belonging to 813-447-6234 moved the next day?
Yes,
All right. And did you, in fact, map out the coordinates of that movement of that phone?
I did.
And as a result of that, did that assist in the investigation in this case, in fact, locating the individual who was involved in this case?
Yes.
All right, I'm now publishing State's Exhibit 18D. And this is the following day, correct? Or the same day, I guess, just later in the afternoon.
The same day, later in the morning and afternoon. In the afternoon, yes.
Yes, okay. At 3 o'clock to 3:40 p.m., correct?
That's correct. 3 p.m. to 3:40 p.m.
At 3 to 3:40.
So basically, what he's showing right now is that the phones was still in the car, right? That's the one they talking about. Cause after he killed the girl, I guess she must have dropped her phone in the back seat, and then he was still driving around with it in the back seat for a while, and they was getting camera shots. That's how they knew they was at the store. That's how they knew they got out the car at the store or went to the store. What areas? That's how they knew. It was by his girlfriend's, Erica Sweet's house, and they was driving together. I mean, well, the phones was riding together at different times. So I'm not sure exactly which one they showing right now, but that's pretty much what the things they mapped out is just where the phones went, where the murder happened, and then after she got out the car and they killed her, the phone was still in the car. So that's the important part about the phone part. At least.
And that appears, all right. And that phone appears, based on this mapping, to be around Tampa General Hospital for quite some period.
Yes, sir.
All right. And is that ultimately what led this cell site activity led investigators to Tampa General Hospital?
Yes.
Detective, as far as the rest of the investigation, was this basically your sole involvement in this investigation?
Yes, sir.
All right, Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Cross-examination. Oh, it's the same girl. Dang, she doing
Good
all
morning.
the crosses, huh?
Just a few questions for you. You started off by talking to us about your role at the Tampa Police Department in the Internet Crimes Against Children section, correct?
Correct.
To be perfectly clear, this case did not come to you as part of the Internet Crimes Against Children.
That is exactly correct, yes.
This is a situation where homicide detectives requested your assistance because you have the knowledge and skills to map out the phone information.
That's correct.
Okay. And in fact, you don't begin to do that mapping or reviewing of the records until sometime, I believe, is it in April of 2025?
As far as this detailed, yes.
Right. Okay. Now, there's a difference between, I'm hoping I'm getting the terminology correctly, between simple cell site data and timing advanced data, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Cell site data essentially just tells you which cell phone tower the phone is connecting to.
Yes, although
And the direction.
Right. And timing advance is cell site data because it's connections between the handset and a cell site.
Right. Timing advanced attempts to pinpoint within a certain proximity the exact location of the, when I say exact, I mean within a margin of error, the location of a handheld device.
Estimated location of the device along with the estimated distance from the cell site. Yes, ma'am.
From the cell site, right. To do this, different cell phone providers use different formulas to reach whatever distance they believe the device might be, correct?
Proprietary algorithms, yes.
And what that means, proprietary algorithms, is that you're not privy to that information, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So you don't know how T-Mobile is reaching the information that they have.
No.
When we're talking about calculations such as timing advance, different factors can come into play, such as weather, correct?
It could, yes.
Whether or not you're in an area with tall trees, correct?
Tall trees or just structures in general.
Tall
I think trees maybe not as much, but metal buildings, things that could affect the radio signal is probably more accurate.
If you're in an area that is heavily wooded or has a lot of tall trees around, can that have an effect on the formula as well?
I don't know about tall trees. My training experience is mostly talks about buildings or structures. Okay.
Yeah. In providing timing advance records to you, they come to you. The person does not have to physically be using the phone in order for you to get information from timing advance, correct?
Correct.
And that's because the phone is routinely trying to connect to towers for various number of reasons.
Correct.
So when we see, for example, that 6234 phone number that's associated with the victim in the case connecting after we know she's dead, that does not mean someone's using her phone, right?
That's correct.
It just means that her phone is still on and is still actively searching for a signal.
The device is, right, registering with the cell sites that are serving that handset.
Okay, all right. And when timing advance records...
And that's from all the apps. Whenever your apps ping, they ping the site. So all them apps, whenever they connect to the internet, they be the ones that's pinging all that.
Are provided
or the text messages too.
To you in times, are they provided to you in standard Eastern time, like the time that we're seeing today?
They're not. They come in UTC, Coordinated Universal Time, which has to be adjusted. I believe at that point it was 4-hour adjustment to Eastern Standard Time.
And so what you have to do is that 4 hours ahead or 4 hours behind?
4 hours ahead is UTC, so we have to subtract.
And does that change whether it's 4 hours or 5 hours depending on whether we're in daylight savings time or not?
Yes.
Okay. At this time back in May of 2022, this would have been the 4 hour ahead.
Correct.
Okay. So when you first get the records, and you're probably using a software system or something to do this for you, but it has to basically calculate the time by subtracting 4 hours from what's on the record.
That's right.
I got it. Okay. And that's pretty universal. Most cell phone provider companies will provide phone numbers or phone records to you in that manner.
In UTC time, or yes.
The timing advance records, those are, in addition to the information, you're provided with a confidence interval, correct?
They do, yes.
And that can range from high to low, and I think is there like a medium or intermediate?
I think it's low, medium, high, or it's 3 levels, something like that, yes.
3 levels, okay.
Yeah.
And to prepare your demonstratives that we've seen here today, you used all 3 confidence intervals, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You were only given location data for those 2 phones that we saw here today, correct?
Correct.
And for the records, that's going to be an 813 number ending in 6234, correct?
Yes.
And then a 305 number ending in 9779, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Can I have a moment, please, Your Honor?
Vernicia Williams, you too, back so soon, huh? Didn't I just see you? Appreciate you joining. Y'all show some love to Vernicia Williams.
Thank you.
FFS and tap in, I see you. Yeah, so this is the trial of Ronnie Walker, who allegedly murked Nylexia Alexander. Man, I'm horrible with names. I'm sorry, family. I got a bad memory. Yes, so we was live last night, sir. We covered 4 hours of this. So for those who ain't seen it and need to get caught up with what's going on, we got a whole 4 hours of it for you from last night, family. Breaking down all the deets. Let me see, I'll play a little clip while they bringing up their next witness. So for those who don't know what this case is about, I got another clip.
Girl who was arrested last week had already admitted to killing someone years ago. So what was Ronnie Walker doing out on the streets? And how was he able to kill Alexia Alexander just 6 months later? Fox 13's Evan Axelbank has been looking into this. He joins us now live from the Hillsborough County Courthouse with this story. Evan?
Well, he had once been ordered to spend the rest of his life behind bars, but that conviction was overturned, and a plea deal allowed him to get out of jail after just 5 years.
Veronica Denson knows from experience the pain 44-year-old Ronnie Walker is capable of inflicting.
This is an animal. They just need to just keep him locked up.
These are scenes of her nightmare's aftermath. In 2003, Veronica was home with her grandmother, Elaine Caldwell, when Walker broke in, demanded money from Elaine's boyfriend, and killed her in front of them. Detectives were turned on to Walker by the boyfriend, who said he'd heard via rumor who the killer was. It took 2 jury trials for him to be found guilty of manslaughter and armed robbery. Walker got life in prison, but his attorneys won an appeal, with a judge citing an inappropriate use of hearsay evidence.
You have a right as a criminal defendant to confront your accuser, to test the evidence against you. And we don't know who these people on the street, if they even really exist.
Faced with the prospect of a 3rd trial, he signed this plea deal in 2012, admitting to manslaughter and agreeing to serve 8 years. Thanks to time already served, he was out in 2016. In 2017, he got 4 years for violating probation. He got out in November of 2021. 6 months later, prosecutors say he killed Alexia Alexander in a hail of gunfire on Florabraska Avenue.
Prosecution is complicated, and back in 2010, I have confidence that the state attorney's office did everything they could to convict him of the charge against him.
Part of the reason his conviction in Caldwell's death was overturned was because the evidence against Walker was tenuous, because there was no physical evidence connecting him with the crimes, and his identification was significantly impeached. Furthermore, some of the evidence was actually inconsistent. In the death of Alexia, the motion to hold him until trial argues they've tied his car movements and DNA to the time and place of where she was shot, and that she was seen on video getting into his car minutes before.
The system didn't really fail. It's a fact of, that's just, unfortunately, it's a very tragic circumstance. We can't incarcerate people for the rest of their lives based upon charges that don't require that.
Our legal analyst does say that with his long criminal history that goes back as long as 25 years, that it could be an aggravating factor if he is convicted and then sentenced for this killing, Allie.
I'm sure that is hard for the family to hear. All right, Evan, thank you.
So yeah, that was Ronnie Walker. Just got out of jail 6 months prior to this happening. This happened back in 2022. The trial just going on today. Is live. Appreciate y'all being here. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Tap in. Share with a friend. Not sure who this lady is yet, but we about to find out. They going straight to the bar? Oh, come on, man. Straight to the bar. They drink before they start. Hold on, is the volume on or she's just sitting there? Oh, okay. They didn't turn the volume back on yet.
Perkins,
Oh, here we go.
Perkins.
All right. And doctor, how are you currently employed?
I'm an associate medical examiner with the Hillsborough County Medical Examiner's Office.
How long have you been working with the medical examiner's office?
I've been full-time with the medical examiner's office for 5 years now.
Prior to working with the Hillsborough County Medical Examiner's Office, did you have any other employment?
No.
All right. What sort of, so what is your degree?
So I actually have a bachelor's of science in biology from the University of Missouri, a master's of biomedical science from Midwestern University, an doctor of osteopathic medicine from the Arizona College of Osteopathic Medicine, so that's medical school. And then I've also completed training in anatomic and clinical pathology for residency at the University of South Florida, and I'm board certified in both anatomic and clinical pathology. And then oh, I'm so sorry. And then I have a forensic pathology training, which was also completed here at the University of South Florida with the conjunction of the Hillsborough County Medical Examiner's Office.
About how many years of education have you had in order to become an associate medical examiner?
About 10, 12 years.
Okay. And you're certified in what areas? I'm sorry, because you were saying that quick. I want to make sure she got
My
that.
apologies. Anatomic and clinical pathology, as well as forensic pathology.
All right. And what is your position now with the medical examiner's office?
Associate medical examiner.
All right. As an associate medical examiner, what are your general duties?
So any death in the state of Florida that's in the Hillsborough County jurisdiction that falls under the statute 40611, meaning any death that's not under the care of a physician, a Florida certified physician, or that's would be a sudden unexpected death. So children, infants, things like that, or accidents, suicides, homicides, something that would be deemed not natural death would come to the medical examiner's office. And it's our duty to determine cause and manner of death.
All right. And what does that mean, cause and manner of death?
So cause of death is an injury or disease that initiates a chain of events leading to someone's death. Manner of death is descriptors of how the situation occurred that led to someone's death. So I mentioned something like homicide, which would be something death at the hands of another individual. Suicide, meaning a death at one's own hands. Accidents, so unforeseen events that led to a death. Natural, things like pneumonia, heart disease, those kind of things. And then there's a fifth called undetermined, where sometimes the circumstances of the death just cannot be determined by the investigation at that time.
All right. Have you ever had to testify as a court or in court as an expert before?
Yes.
About approximately how many times?
At least 50.
50? Okay. At this time, Judge, I'll pass the witness if they have any questions.
No questions on this one.
Now, as a medical examiner, do you sometimes go to the scenes of crimes?
Yes.
Did you go to the scene of this crime?
No, I did not.
All right. Does the office or does the medical examiner's office send someone out, though, typically?
Yes, we have certified death investigators who are specialized in going to crime scenes and collecting that kind of evidence specifically just for the medical examiner's purpose in determining cause and manner of death.
And prior to the autopsy, are you informed by that examiner or by that person who goes out there what the circumstances surrounding the location and how the person was found? Are you given all that information prior to doing the autopsy?
Yes.
And does that information aid you and assist you in determining the cause of death?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe to the jury how a typical autopsy is performed?
Sure. So it's the minute the person comes into our facility, they are issued a unique case number. So that case number is going to follow them wherever they go within our morgue, so that we can document purposes with photography and making sure everything matches and we have a good chain of evidence with that individual. So especially in a homicide, when they come from the scene to our facility, the body bag actually has a red tag on it in order to determine that it was consistent with coming from the scene into our facility. And then I'm present at that time when our morgue technicians will process the body. So that's collecting evidence that's on the body, that's fingerprints, fingernail clippings, hair clippings, photography, and x-rays of the individual. Then I do an external examination And that's where I'm documenting hair color, eye color, identifying factors, along with things like injuries that I need to document and any evidence that I might see visually on the body. Then the body is cleaned so that I can even further look, make sure there's no injuries hiding underneath clotted blood or any debris, maybe dirt that might be under any wounds. And then that proceeds into the internal examination. And that's what the traditional autopsy that we think of. So opening up the body, looking at wound paths, looking at the organs, and checking for any injuries or natural disease. And we're collecting toxicology specimens at that time. That's blood and urine, those kind of things that we may need to process in the laboratory. The organs are then taken from the body, and I'm looking at them visually again with the naked eye, and taking sometimes, depending on the case, small sections to look underneath the microscope for any kind of natural disease that I can't see with the naked eye. At that time, that's the end of the autopsy, and throughout that whole process, photographs are being taken, and again with that unique case number.
All right. And you mentioned fingernail clippings. Those are given usually to law enforcement at that time?
Yes, we collect the evidence, and then at the end of the autopsy, the evidence is packaged and given to law enforcement for their processing.
Okay, is one of the things that you collect a blood stain card?
Yes.
And how do you collect that, and what is that for?
So while I'm in that internal portion of the autopsy, I am taking blood samples directly from a blood vessel, and then that blood is then put into a syringe and placed on a blood card. And then that blood card is used for the purposes of DNA testing that may be done.
All right, and I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 20, and ask you if you can take a look inside. Yeah.
Yes.
Bruh.
Should put two gloves on, I'm sorry.
They kind of
Stick together. Yes. So this is my signature, yes.
Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what is this?
This is the blood spot card. So again, taking the blood specimen from directly inside the body and placing it onto a card and allowing it to dry for DNA purposes.
All right, and that's pretty common in any case, or especially cases involving that could be a
Every
potential
case
homicide.
we do, homicide or not, is done.
Every case, okay. Judge, at this time I move to have State's Exhibit 20 admitted into evidence.
Well.
Do you also obtain the height and weight of the individual that you are about to conduct an autopsy on?
Yes.
And in this particular case of Alexia Alexander, which I should ask first, were you involved in the autopsy of Alexia Alexander?
I was.
All right. Did you obtain a height and weight for Alexia Alexander?
Yes.
What was that?
I'm referring to my autopsy report, page 3. She was 5 foot 9 inches, 180 pounds.
All right. And you mentioned that pictures are taken, is that correct?
Correct.
Oh shit, hold on, what they about to show? I gotta get my trigger warning ready. I wish we could, I guess I could have fast forwarded because I'm a little behind, but let me get my trigger warning ready. I don't know what they about to pull up. I might need to block some stuff.
Bruh.
See, only you can figure that out.
Oh shit. Where's my trigger warning? Let me go and pull it up now.
Doctor, you mentioned that in performing autopsies, you also take photographs as you're going through to document the injuries and the locations of the injuries. Is that pretty common?
Yes.
All right. And would those pictures aid and assist you in demonstrating to the jury the injuries that Alexia Alexander suffered in this case?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibits D2 through D27 and ask if you can take a look through those photographs.
18-year-old, 5'9", 180 pounds.
All right, Doctor, have you had a chance to look at those?
I have.
And do those pictures fairly and accurately depict the autopsy and the pictures that you took when you were conducting that autopsy on that day?
They do.
All right, move to State's Exhibit D2 through D27 admitted into evidence.
Maintain your objection, Your Honor.
Objection noted, same ruling will be allowed as States D2 through 27.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'm going to show you now what's marked as States D2. Now, you had mentioned that when they're brought in with a unique identification number. Is that identified in this case?
Yes, it is.
And can you point that out to the jury so that they can see that?
Yes.
Oh, we're not doing that.
So that 22-04281 that's depicted on this picture, that's the case number?
Yes.
And it's marked underneath there, unidentified. At this point in time, did you know the individual's name is not Alexia Alexander?
No, we did not have a name for her at that time.
All right. And is this kind of a typical picture to take to show the facial characteristics of the individual who you're about to conduct the autopsy on?
Yes, we do an identification photo so that we can show family potentially if identification is needed visually.
Okay. Now it shows on this photo, it appears that one of her eyes on the right side is swollen to some degree and black. What is that from? Is that what she hit there, or is that from something different?
So as we'll see further, there are gunshot wounds to her head, and they created fractures on the inside of her skull, and that allows blood to get underneath the skin and can collect around the eye, giving this bruised eye, black eye look.
All right. Thank you. Now, before I get into the rest of the pictures, Doctor, if you can please maybe briefly kind of describe what these injuries were that you noted on Alexia Alexander when she came in.
Sure. So she had 4 total gunshot wounds to her body. All were entrances and exits. So 4 pairs of wounds, 4 gunshot wounds, as well as 2 bruises, 1 to her left arm, 1 to her right forearm, and some small healing abrasions on one of her ankles.
All right. Now I'm going to start going through those, and Doctor, before I get into the specific injuries, and are you able to calculate or determine just based on those injuries the timing of those injuries?
No, I cannot.
All right. All right. I'm going to start with states D3. Do we see a particular injury in this particular case?
Yes.
All right. And where is this injury?
So we're looking at her back, at the base of her neck.
Okay. And there's a marker underneath. Is that notating a specific injury?
The marker, the ruler with our case number, is providing some scale for noting the injury, which is just above the scale, above the number 3.
All right. Can you describe this wound to the jury?
So this would be an entrance gunshot wound to the back.
All right. And where did this wound travel? What was the travel of the wound?
So this went from the left side of her back to the right side of her back. Again, this is what we call a perforating wound, or an through and through wound.
So no projectile was recovered from this?
Correct.
All right. So, and can you give the general direction of travel? You said what goes through the back?
Yes, I am going to refer to the case report on page 8 of the report. So this is going to travel, and this is with reference to her standing in standard anatomic position. What that means, again, Your Honor, if I may stand. So the person is looking directly at you with their arms at their side and their palms facing forward. So there's a lot of movement with arms, so we do what we call standard anatomic position so that everyone speaks the same language. So arms at the side and palms forward. And this is based on how the wound path went through her, so her lefts and rights. So in this case, the wound went from her left to right, front to back, and downward.
All right. And I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit D1. Would this be an example of the standard anatomical position as drawn out?
Yes.
And does this, was this in fact your diagram that you used to show the wounds?
Yes, these are my notes from the autopsy.
And it fairly accurately shows what you did?
Yes.
Judge, move that State's Exhibit D1 admitted into evidence.
No objection to D1.
D1 will be admitted without objection.
So when you're talking about the standard anatomical position, as you demonstrated, this is kind of a diagram that you will use in these kind of cases.
Yes.
Right? And the injury you're referring to that we're talking about right now, this is the injury that you said occurs right here, correct?
Correct.
Fingers pointing, which is sort of the up on the back with the back portion towards the left side, just below the head.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. And you said it enters there and then it exits. Would this be the exit wound consistent with that?
Yes.
Right, and in D4, does this give a more close-up view of that particular entrance wound?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then D5, what are we looking at here?
So this is the corresponding exit wound to the entrance wound we just saw in the back. So now we're more on the right side of the back, close to the shoulder.
And how are you able to determine which is an entrance wound and which is an exit wound?
So entrance wounds and exit wounds kind of have unique features as the bullet goes through the body. So with entrance wounds, we typically see what we call a ring of abrasion around the hole that's made in the skin, as well as what we call a tissue deficit. So like a hole punch through the skin. I can't put the margins of that wound back together. Exit wounds, however, I can typically fold the tissue back together. If I were to do it like a puzzle piece, it would go back together.
Okay. So in D4, do we see some of what you're talking about, the abrasion or anything like that?
Yes.
You can stand up. That's fine.
So this red pink area here, where the skin is missing, that's the abrasion here. So a scrape, like you had, if you fell on your knees on the pavement and you had to scrape the skin, that's what we're talking about there.
All right. And then the exit wound doesn't have that, correct?
Correct. In this case, if you were to fold the tissue edges together, they would come back together.
So in D6, which is a more close-up of that exit wound, you can kind of see how you do it there?
Yes.
Okay. Doctor, was this a fatal injury?
It was not.
Would this injury have been immediately incapacitating?
No.
Could a person who suffered this injury still be able to walk around and move around?
Yes.
If an individual was seated in a vehicle and suffered this injury, could that person open the car door and still get out of the car?
Yes.
Now, the angle of that, you don't know the position of the body at the time of shooting, correct?
Correct.
And so her position could have been in any manner or any way when that shot occurred.
Yes, there are a variety of positions she could have been in.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, doctor, so if she were seated in a vehicle and sees someone about to shoot her and bends down like that, would that be consistent with the shot and the angle of the shot?
Yes.
All right. What was, now there's another one you talk about, let me go to State's Exhibit D7. What are we looking at here?
So this is an entrance gunshot wound on the left side of her head.
Okay. Describe, if you can, for the jury what this wound, what happened to it.
Yes. So this entrance wound is on the left side of her head and enters into her scalp and then into her skull and brain. Specifically, I'm referring to page 5 of my report. Enters the left parietal hair-bearing region of her scalp and then the left parietal bone, so the side of her head here. Enters the parietal lobes of the brain, the left and the right, and then exits out the right parietal bone on the side of her scalp, and that's where it exits.
Okay. And so in State's Exhibit D8, is that just a more close-up view of that wound?
Yes, and again, we can see that red area of marginal abrasion a little bit better on this one.
Okay. So that definitely indicates that it's an entrance wound, is that right?
Correct.
Was there any evidence of close-range firing on this?
No.
Tell the jury, if you could, what close-range firing, what sort of evidence you look for in that.
Sure. So sometimes if the muzzle of the weapon is close enough to the body, then we get what we call evidence of close-range firing. So other than the bullet being ejected from the end of that muzzle, the unburnt gunpowder will actually eject from the end of the muzzle as well, and then some soot, so that like light gunpowder, but burnt. So if you are close enough to an individual when they are shot, the unspent gunpowder hits the body very hard and create these little punctate abrasions on the skin. And if it's even closer to the person, then the very light soot actually can hit the skin as well. So we'll see soot and gunpowder stippling on the skin. In this case, I see neither.
Okay. Now she had how would you describe her hair?
She had very thick, full hair.
All right. Could that have maybe absorbed some of that so that you would not be able to see it in this particular case?
That's possible. Any intervening object, whether it be clothes, thick hair, hats, things like that, those can block the evidence. Close range firing doesn't mean it's not close in firing distance. It just means it doesn't leave that evidence of it.
All right, and you indicated that this wound that we were referring to in D7 has an exit wound on the other side of the body. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, and on the it's on the other side of the head. Would D9, is that the corresponding exit wound to that particular shot?
With reference in this photograph above the ruler, so to the left in the photograph, yes, that is the
Right
corresponding exit wound. Correct.
That is the corresponding exit wound. All right, and so was this wound immediately fatal?
This would be very quickly fatal, yes.
Very quickly fatal. So, like, if she had suffered this wound and she was on an operating table, they probably still would not be able to, she probably would not survive.
Correct.
Was this wound immediately incapacitating?
Yes.
So, once suffering this wound, she would have just collapsed immediately,
Yes.
correct? All right. And in D10, this is just an example showing that how this is an exit wound, correct?
Correct.
All right.
So that mean the other two, she had to be on the ground, like he stood over her and hit her with two more.
And you described that wound. What was the directionality of that, or the path of travel of that wound?
So again, referring to page 5 of my report, the direction, again in standard anatomic position for her, would be left to right, slightly back to front, and upward.
Okay. And on State's Exhibit D1 on this chart, where is that particular wound demonstrated on here?
So underneath the L here, this is the entrance wound. So this is her left, and then it travels to the right, and then right underneath the R is the corresponding exit wounds.
All right. So it almost travels directly across her head.
Correct.
Okay. Now, doctor, I may need some help with some of these other photographs that show these wounds, but as far as the entrance and exits, but I will start, let me start with one that I'm pretty certain is, I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit D11. What are we looking at in this particular instance?
So we are looking at an entrance gunshot wound on the right side of her face. This wound has those characteristics of the close range firing I was talking about. The gunpowder stippling, so that's the tiny little red marks on her face. That's created from the unspent gunpowder, the unburnt gunpowder. And then there's a very fine gray mist to that. That's the soot.
So, doctor, based on that, would you say that this was a close range firing?
Yes.
Approximately how far a distance do you think the muzzle was from the face when she was shot here?
Sure. So you'd actually have to fire that exact same weapon with that same projectile to get the precise distance fire. But generally speaking, with handguns, soot only travels about 12 inches, up to 12 inches. And the gunpowder stippling, that can be a little bit farther, but since we have the soot here, it narrows that frame of distance down to around 12 inches.
So, doctor, would your opinion be that the muzzle or the gun was within 12 inches of her face at this point?
Yes.
All right. And then States D12, does that also give you a more, can you help with the description of the actual soot and stippling?
Yes, so now this is a closer picture of what we can see, and I'm not sure if it's projecting very well for you, but there's a gray haze in and around some of these punctate abrasions. So this is the gunpowder stippling, the small punctate holes, and then the gray haze to it is the soot.
Now, did this wound have a corresponding exit wound?
It did.
Okay, so this was a, as you said, perforating. They all were, correct?
Yes, all 4 wounds were perforating.
All right. Where did this wound exit?
So the corresponding exit wound is on the back of her neck.
All right, I'm going to go to States D16. Does this demonstrate where that exit wound is?
Yes, the back of her neck, around that hairline, yes.
So it appears there may be two in this particular instance. Which one were you referring to?
We are looking at the wound just above the ruler.
Right, this one right here where my finger is pointing? Which is
Correct.
just above the ruler as you described?
Yes.
And that's the one that came, so describe to the jury then that cheek wound, where the path of travel was in relation to her head.
Sure. So it's going inside the right side of her face, entering through some facial bones, and then hits the very tip of her jawbone here. Enters through the back of the neck, hitting the vertebral artery, which is an important artery sending blood from heart up into the brain, and then exits out the back side of her neck at the hairline.
Okay. So if the muzzle then would most likely be in front of her face, so she would actually be able to view it.
Yes.
All right. Was this a fatal wound?
Yes.
Would it have been immediately fatal?
Yes.
And would it have been immediately incapacitating?
Yes.
And states D17, is that just a more close-up view of that exit wound that we've just discussed?
It is.
Was there another, so we've talked about two. We've talked about the one to the left forehead, and we talked about the one to the cheek. Was there another one?
There was a third one on the left side of the head, but just a little farther back of the head.
Okay, so I'm going to show you states D13. Is this in fact the entrance wound you're referring to?
Yes, it is.
All right. And describe for the jury this wound, its path of travel, where it entered, and kind of how it went through her body.
Sure. So I'm going to refer to my report starting on page 5. This is Roman numeral 2 within the report. So this entrance wound, like I said, is a little bit further back, but still on the left side of the head. Enters through the scalp, enters the skull, perforates the left parietal and right occipital lobes of the brain, the right cerebellar hemisphere. So this one's starting to go in a downward trajectory, so hitting brain, and then the cerebellum sits a little bit lower and hits at the right side of the occipital bone, so at the back of your head, just before you're getting to the neck region, and that's where it exits the head.
Okay. And so this was, again, a perforating wound?
Yes.
All right, and I'm going to show you, before, obviously in this photograph here in states D13, the head appears to be, the hair was shaved off, correct?
Yes.
Prior to shaving the hair, do you inspect the hair to see if there's any objects, anything of evidentiary value that you might find on the hair?
Yes.
Did you find something in this particular case?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm showing you what's marked as States Exhibit D14. Do we see what you identified as potential evidence in this case?
Yes. So adjacent to the exit wound within her hair, there was a small fragment of projectile. We can see it in the photograph above the 1.5 mark on the centimeters here.
All right. Thank you. Now, going back to this wound, entrance wound D13, you said it had a corresponding exit wound. I'm going to show you what's marked as D15. Is this in fact the exit wound to that particular injury?
Yes, it is.
All right. And again, this is for the photograph, it's above the ruler and kind of in the upper part of her neck, right?
In the back of the head, yes.
Back of the head, yes. Okay. And again, this wound was immediately fatal, or was it?
Yes.
Okay. And would this wound have been immediately incapacitating?
Yes.
Could the 3 wounds to the head, were they all fatal wounds?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And were they all basically immediately incapacitating?
Yes, they were.
So the only wound that she could have actually survived and walked around and so forth was the one to her back?
Correct.
All right. Do you sometimes make note of identifying features in a person, especially for those that are come in that are unidentified?
Yes.
All right, I'm showing you what's marked as States Exhibit D19. Is this in fact an example of one of those situations?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and so this was a tattoo, correct?
Yes.
All right, and the reason for taking these pictures is also, besides just documenting the body and how you found it, but you can also use this later for identification?
Yes.
All right. Now,
so I don't think they're gonna show the tattoo, but I believe we showed the tattoo on the show yesterday. If not, I'll show it on one of the next ones.
Aside from these four gunshot wounds she had, you did indicate that you found some other injuries?
Yes.
What were those injuries?
So this is page 8 of the report. So there were blunt impact wounds. So those are things like bruises, scratches, what we call abrasions, lacerations, or cuts in the skin. In this case, she had 2 bruises, one on the right forearm, as we just actually saw in that photo with the tattoo. There was a small contusion or bruising above the R in the tattoo. The circular discoloration here is a bruise. She also had a faint green purple contusion or bruise to the left arm. And then she had some healing abrasions or scratches on her left ankle.
All right, and in D20, would this be the other bruising you're referring to?
Yes.
In the other arm? And the abrasions you're referring to, D18, is that kind of documenting that?
Yes.
All right, and those were healing though, correct?
Those are starting to heal, yes.
Yes, all right. So you don't know whether or not those, you can't say whether or not those are related at all to what happened at that time?
No, I cannot.
All right. Now, when you obtained these, was there any other fragments aside from the one we just talked about that was in the hair? Did you find
So she was already getting beaten, abused before this even happened.
another fragment as well?
There was an additional fragment
And
along one of the wound paths.
Where was that? It was along the wound path?
So the one we saw was associated, this one was in her hair as well. Both were kind of in and around those exit wounds and within the hair.
Okay. And what is done when you obtain those fragments? What do you do with them?
They're photographed as is, then removed from the hair, again photographed, and then placed in sealed evidence envelopes. And then I seal them with evidence tape, and then I sign over that to make sure that there's no contamination there. And then that is given into police custody for them to do all of their testing.
Okay, so like for instance, D21, would this be those things that you sealed up?
Yes.
All right. And then D22, that's the backside of that?
Yes.
All right. And you in fact put them in there yourself?
I collected them and then I gave them to my technician for them to photograph and seal.
All right. And in D23, what are we looking at here?
That is one of the fragments removed from the hair.
All right. And then D24, is that basically the same fragment just turned around?
Yes, we take multiple sides of the fragment.
Then D25, is that the other fragment that you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And then those are turned over to law enforcement and to do whatever they can do or want to do?
Correct.
Do you also take x-rays of the bodies before you start the autopsy or when you're doing the autopsy?
Yes, before starting any of the autopsy and then potentially with it during the autopsy as well.
Okay. And do you use those sometimes to help you locate particular fragments or anything like that?
Yes.
And in D26, is this an example of that x-ray that was done in this particular case?
Yes.
Okay. And then D27, this is, would this be her skull?
Yes, we're looking at a side profile of her skull.
Okay. And so if there had been any fragments within her skull, would this have shown through this x-ray?
Yes.
And based on this x-ray, does it show that there were none?
You actually see very faint of the fragments that were actually in her hair. Again, I can't projecting for you, but there's a very faint, small fragment here,
Yeah.
and then up here.
Okay. Yep.
Those are those fragments.
Yep. Okay. So that will diagram those particular fragments.
Yes.
So they were actually on the outside, not on the inside. They were just in the hair.
Correct.
So that's how they showed up on this.
Yes.
Okay.
Pure sickness, Chan. Pure sickness.
Doctor, after conducting your examination, what did you determine the cause and manner of death to be?
This is page 2 of my report. So the cause of death were gunshot wounds to head, perforating skull and brain.
In the manner?
The manner of death was homicide, shot by another person or persons by firearm arms.
there any other thing you noticed? Any other contributing illnesses? Anything else that could have caused her death?
No.
All right. Was she basically healthy other than the wounds that she suffered?
Yes, no natural diseases indicated at autopsy.
All right. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Justice for Alexia. It's crazy, man. She didn't deserve this.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, I'm sorry. It's
Oh,
still
it is
morning.
good morning.
It's still morning. All right. Dr. Perkins, I want to talk to you about those, what you mentioned, bruises on the right forearm and the left forearm.
Yes.
You mentioned that they potentially occurred at or around the time of the shooting based upon the color of the bruises?
No, I can't tell the exact timing. It's possible that they occurred around that time, though.
So it is possible, but you can't say when exactly those occurred?
Correct.
Okay. And using the color of bruising to determine the timing of it is not an exact science, is it?
No.
Okay, all right. And those bruises, those could have occurred simply just from someone falling to the ground?
Yes.
Okay. With regard to the gunshots, I think what you told Mr. Terry, I gave him an extra degree. What you told Mr. Terry is that you cannot tell the sequence of the gunshots.
Correct.
Meaning you cannot tell us which of the wounds occurred first.
Correct.
In your autopsy report, you number the wounds 1, 2, 3, 4, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
But those numbers have nothing to do with, again, the order in which they were sustained.
No, I simply do a top to bottom ordering of my wounds.
There's nothing about this case that can give you that determination of which wound occurred first.
No.
Okay. During your preliminary examination of the body, is it also customary that you and or technicians with the medical examiner's office will take certain swabs from the body?
Yes.
Does this include swabs from intimate areas such as from the vagina?
Yes.
And are these swabs then given to law enforcement so that they can send them for further testing?
Yes.
Do you also have access to the clothing of the decedent to inspect or to look at?
In this case, yes.
Okay. You mentioned when you were talking about close range gunshot wounds and stippling and soot that if there is sort of a barrier, such as clothing, that can prevent any sort of stippling on the skin, correct?
Yes.
However, if you have the clothing, you have the ability to inspect it to determine whether there's any sort of soot or any evidence of gunpowder on that clothing.
Yes, I'll do visual inspection, but any other further testing is done by law enforcement and crime scene.
Sure. And again, that clothing in this case was available to you?
Yes.
And was, when you were done inspecting it or doing whatever you needed to, provided to law enforcement?
Yes.
You mentioned a number of wounds, but in total, I think it's 4 gunshot wounds and 4 associated exits.
Yes.
3 of those gunshot wounds occur on the left side of the body.
Correct.
There is only 1 gunshot wound to the right side.
Correct.
And is that the gunshot wound to the cheek?
Yes.
Okay. And that is a wound that would have immediately incapacitated the victim.
Yes.
Meaning she would not have been able to move around after sustaining that wound to the right side of her body.
Correct.
When you were speaking with Mr. Terry about the wound to, I believe that either the left shoulder or the left back, do you recall what I'm referring to?
Yes.
He gave you an example, a position, and asked you, is it possible that the decedent could have been in a certain position? Do you recall that line of questioning?
Yes.
You by no means can say that that is the position she was in.
Correct.
All we could do is, I can stand up here all day long and give you different scenarios, and you can tell me possible or not possible.
Yes, there are a number of positions.
But there is nothing about that wound, nothing about this case that you've reviewed that can give you the position of the decedent in any of these shots.
No.
All you could basically do is tell us where the muzzle of the gun was in relation to the decedent's body.
That's correct.
That wound associated with the left shoulder or towards the back of the left side of the body, you said you did not observe any gunpowder or soot or stippling.
No.
But again, that is an area that would have potentially been covered by the clothing of the decedent?
Yes.
And you had that to inspect?
Yes.
There was an associated exit wound with that gunshot wound, correct?
Yes.
And can you remind us again, where was that exit wound?
That was on the right side of her back.
You're able to follow the path that the projectile took through the body, correct?
Yes.
And so it's moving essentially from left side of the body to the right side.
Correct.
There is no projectile or no projectile fragments located within that path.
Not with that wound.
Okay, so that means the projectile would have exited the body of the decedent.
Yes.
And that wound that we're discussing, the one to the back, that is the only wound that would not have rendered the decedent immediately incapacitated.
Correct.
Mr. Terry asked you about a wound that had an exit, I think, to the back of the neck, correct?
Yes.
And that he asked you a question of whether the muzzle would have been right in front of the decedent's face.
Yes.
Okay. You cannot tell us whether or not the decedent was conscious at the time that she sustained that wound, can you?
No.
Okay. Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
What is... Oh, my gosh. She just saying that to say she didn't see the flash? Because I guess it's worse. Like, if you die worse to see the flash, is that what they trying to say? She said, you don't know if she was conscious or not.
Wound that did... That wound to the back, Dr. Perkins, is that the only wound that did not hit any sort of major arteries or other organs of the body?
No, it did not. It hit skin and some superficial muscles of the body.
So that would not have been, that's the only non-fatal wound?
Correct.
Okay. Just a moment, please. Let me make sure I've got everything. Okay, I don't have anything else. Thank you, Dr. Perkins.
Yes, sir. Doctor, that going back to that wound in the back part of the body.
Yes.
That wound travels almost the full length of her back through her body, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so when a projectile enters the body, does it often lose velocity?
Yes, it does.
In fact, don't you often find projectiles in the body themselves?
Yes.
Objection to leading.
Do you often find projectiles in the body themselves?
Yes, we have penetrating gunshot wounds, which are when the bullet does not exit the body.
So if a bullet goes into the body, the minute as it's traveling through the body, does it start to continue to lose velocity the farther into the body it goes?
Yes.
And in this instance, we have some projectiles that are recovered very near where the victim's body was recovered. If those projectiles had gone through the head, could it be possible that they were just dropped right there because they had lost all their velocity to go any farther?
That's possible.
Okay. And so, for instance, the one that goes through the back, as it comes out, could it have lost most of its velocity by the time it exits the back?
Objection, Your Honor, beyond this witness's scope.
Judge, she's an expert. I can ask her. Is it possible that it would have lost velocity by that?
Can we approach?
Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Tap in. We got a little bit of time. I'll skip through. And I did cover some way more crazier parts of this than what we're seeing right now. I mean, this is all crazy, so don't get me wrong. It's all crazy. It's all too crazy to be watching, but last night was way crazier, yo, family. So after this one over, after they go to lunch, I'm going to take my break and take my old man nap. And then y'all go and watch last night's, because that mess was crazy.
If you could describe that wound to the back, what area, what muscles it went through, how long, how the length of the muscle that it went through, and what it had to go through before it exited the body.
Yes, so this wound, this is referring to page 7 of my report, enters on the left side of the back and perforates into the subcutis, so that's the tissue just deep to the skin, and goes through the left side into the right side of the, what we call the right scapular region of the back, so just above your shoulder blade. And that's where it exits the body. So it goes through the skin and the subcutaneous soft tissue, and then very superficially perforates some of the musculature in the back.
Some of the muscles that it goes through. Okay, and then it has to exit out the body through skin again.
Yes.
So it goes, the bullet enters through skin and has to exit through that same skin.
Yes.
All right. And again, is it going back to that wound, that back wound, when we were discussing it, and Ms. Dunker got up and said there's all sorts of unlimited possibilities, but the one I had suggested was if she is seated in the back seat of a vehicle and someone from the front seat turns around to shoot her, and she sees that and ducks down, would that be consistent or possible for that bullet to have entered and left and exited at that particular location?
That is possible.
All right, thanks. Nothing further, Judge.
May this witness be excused?
She may, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a good time to take our lunch break, so I would ask that you be back at 1:15 for being recessed.
All rise for the jury. So they going on break. Before I leave y'all though, I'll play one more clip for those who just getting caught up. And again, I appreciate y'all being here. Make sure y'all hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Keep us in the algorithm, or get us back in the algorithm. It seems like they kicked us out. We trying to get back up in there. We getting there though. Appreciate y'all, family.
Well,
I got one more clip for
isn't
you right
this
here.
a nice surprise?
Teen-year-old girl got off to an explosive start as prosecutors revealed the motive. Alexia Alexander was killed 3 years ago, and prosecutors have charged Ronnie Walker with capital murder. But the defense says he is not the man they should be looking at. Fox 13's Evan Axelbank is live at the Hillsborough County Courthouse to unpack opening statements today. Evan, what they have to say?
Well, prosecutors say that Walker was mad that his relationship with Alexia had been exposed. The defense says that police bullied an accomplice into lying about who pulled the trigger.
Now, Alexia Alexander.
Maybe the only central fact not in dispute in this courtroom is that Alexia Alexander was too young for any of this.
14-year-old Alexia Alexander had run away from home. It wasn't her first time running away from home. She'd been struggling.
Her mother had to listen to and see some of the gory details from the early morning of May 6th of 2022, when her daughter Alexia was found shot 6 times, at least once in the head. Prosecutors believe Walker was mad he had contracted something from her in their relationship and that he'd given it to his actual girlfriend.
That gun was within 12 inches of her face. Intentional, premeditated.
Prosecutors say they'll be calling a witness who will testify that Walker admitted to shooting her after blaming someone else, that he lied to investigators, and that he tried to clean the blood from his car. In their opening statement, defense attorneys are pouncing on the credibility of those witnesses.
He had been in jail, bonded out, committed more crimes, bonded out, and he was about to have his bond revoked. He was about to be in a situation where he would have to go back to jail.
Defense attorneys say it was the other person in the car that night, Robert Creed, who killed Alexia, insisting that only Creed had been communicating with her in the days before the shooting. They also insist the DNA evidence of blood is not conclusive and that Creed's critical statements to detectives that Walker shot Alexia only came because the detectives badgered him.
If Ronnie Walker just shot and killed her in the car because he was mad at her, just tell me that. And then, and only then, you will hear that Robert Creed, for the first time, changes his story and says, that's exactly what happened. And from there on out, Robert Creed mimics, repeats what the detective had told him.
And this trial is expected to take many days, Haley. They just wrapped up testimony for...
So this is her mom right there. This is what we covered, some of what we covered yesterday, last night. So for those who didn't see it, y'all go ahead and get y'all some of that in. I'll be back maybe later tonight, maybe around 7 or so tonight if things work out, and I'll play the rest of where we left off today. So if y'all in a rush, y'all could go ahead and watch the rest. But if y'all got time to catch up with me tonight, then I'll play where we left off from today, from the trial today, where we left off right now. And if you just need something to watch, like I said, we got them 4 hours. But shout out to everybody in the chat. Tat, tat, tat. Appreciate you, family. Chad My Black is golden. Much love, much love. TSC, that's right. I need that old man nap, man. I've been up since 4:30. I was tired, boss. I was tired. Shout out to Tat. Shout out to FFS. Appreciate you, family. Hold on. I was tired, boss.
Over time. What? I'm over time.
And really, it's just so I have more energy later. Venicia Williams, appreciate you stopping by. Much love, much love. TSC, appreciate you. Tack Cloud Chain. Let me see. Who else was the stream sponsors? Oh, Laugh Now, Cry Later. Laugh Now, Cry Later. Y'all show some love to our stream sponsors. And I appreciate y'all, family. Shout out to Tay Biz. I see you. Appreciate all y'all. Tall Glass, Brown Sugar Babe, Jazzy T, Factual Lie. I appreciate all y'all, family. I'm out of here. Until next time, stay fresh and stay blessed. I'm out of here. Peace out.
From the ashes he arose. Never hate a friend or foes. Just a sub to art and not giving a fuck. Chasing down my goals. I self-law am master. Supernatural.
Shout out to No One. Rock Solid TV.
I am the flesh. I am the God. No one got the lab on lockdown. Talking hot winters and cold summers. Black Force ones when we slide in the streets.
Lord, tap, tap, tap. Share My Black is golden.
Watch the trial. Leo's be capping. Chatting action. Come and tap in the most interactive. I am the flesh. I am the God. I am the flesh. I am the God.
Gon' tap in, gon' flesh skin every rap in. If you like us, gon' get the lights up. You sub, you can share, tell them pack in. Feeling left, right, front to the passenger side. It's right here, the premiere. How you know? Cause them boys broadcast to the live. Wanna talk about it, hit the link right here. Slide coins up, got 100 bands. Montage, watch how the check. And the band made love do a bobblehead. 2 bands do a dance like check. I'ma keep going till I'm motherfucking tired. You what? I'm motherfucking tired. Slide real side, could be rain down game. Like, what you mean? Just watch the rise. Watch the rise. Watch the rise.
I am the flesh. I am the God. I am the flesh. I am the God.
Flesh of the gods. I see one. I see one. I see one. I see one. I see one.
I am the flesh. I am the God.
KSPN. Shout out to Cat Knot Williams.
I am the flesh.
Sweetie.
I am the God.
Sweetie! Sweetie! You soft. Sweetie! Sweetie! You soft.